A new spy game has begun. The second Cold War is intensifying and US might have a new problem to deal with. After sending a spy balloon, China could build a spy base in Cuba. Yes, a dedicated facility in America's backyard. Disturbing reports have emerged. They say China and Cuba have struck a deal. Beijing will set up a snooping base on the island. In return, Havana is getting billions of dollars. That's the claim made by an American newspaper. This couldn't have happened at a worse time. The US and China are talking again. After a delay, America's top diplomat is finally getting a chance to travel to China. Blinken could go to Beijing as soon as next week. Will these revelations derail his trip again? Let's discuss. There's no official communication yet. The plans for the moment exist just on paper. But both countries have agreed in principle. Washington has reason to worry. So what is China's plan in Cuba? Now, reports say it wants to set up an eavesdropping station here, about 160 kilometers away from Florida. This is Cuban territory. From here, China can snoop on key military bases inside America. Several important bases are in this region. There's one in Tampa, the US Central Command headquarters. This is the same command which led the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Then there is Fort Liberty in North Carolina, the largest US military base. All these bases will be targets for the Chinese base. What kind of intelligence can it pick up? Signals intelligence. This includes emails, phone calls, and satellite transmission. I know this sounds like an intelligence nightmare, but Washington is trying to play down the story. The Pentagon has dismissed these reports.
Is there a new listening post in Cuba that affects the United States?
Based on the information that we have, that is not accurate, that we are not aware of China and Cuba developing any type of spy station. Separately, I would say that the relationship that those two countries share is something that we continuously monitor.
So the reports are inaccurate, according to Washington. But China is deepening its ties with Cuba. For America, that is a matter of concern. Havana too issued a denial. It called the claims unfounded.
These are all fallacies with the perfidious intention of justifying an unprecedented tightening of the embargo, destabilization and aggression against Cuba, and of deceiving the public in the United States and the world.
So what was China's reaction? The Chinese embassy in Washington did not refute the story. They said they don't know anything about this, so they won't be able to comment. Earlier today, Beijing spoke out. They said the US is spreading rumors.
I'm not aware of the situation that you've mentioned. It's well known to everyone that spreading rumors and slander is a common US tactic.
The US is spreading rumors. Slander is a common tactic. A lot of criticism, but no denial. And that says something. Experts say China is trying to turn the tables on the US.
For a long time, the US was unilaterally capable of spying on Chinese military exercises, activities. The Chinese could do only so much. And this facility shifts that.
It is a shift indeed. The US conducts routine spying operations. It sends surveillance flights over South China Sea. It deploys military assets in the Pacific. It equips allies with sophisticated intelligence gathering tools. So China is trying to match up. It is making bold moves. In recent years, China's espionage activities have intensified. Washington has accused Beijing of targeting the US government with hackers, recruiting agents, and for monitoring dissenters and critics inside America. A spy base in Cuba seems to be the next step. It is strategically located and near the United States. China and Cuba have close ties. They have been close since the end of the last Cold War. China is Cuba's largest trade partner. Chinese firms are deeply involved in multiple Cuban industries. Beijing also holds a lot of Cuba's foreign debt. A cash infusion by China will be welcome news. The Cuban economy needs it. It is suffering due to inflation and fuel shortages. There's a cash crunch too, but to get the Chinese money, Cuba will have to make compromises. It won't be unprecedented. Just look at the past. Cuba is an old rival of the United States. During the First Cold War, it was a hotbed of all spy games. Cuba had deep ties to the Soviet Union. The Soviets, too, had built a spy base in Cuba. This was in the mid-1960s. Where was this base? The Lourdes Island, just south of Havana. The purpose remained the same. The base was there to snoop on America. But the world witnessed a bigger crisis in 1962. This is when Moscow placed its nukes in Cuba. Yes, the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the most scary periods in modern history. That time, the US and the Soviet Union came dangerously close to a nuclear confrontation. They managed to pull back from the brink. Now, the US and China are on the same collision course. Washington's relationship with Havana remains frosty. Successive presidents have failed to win over Cuba. There's a trade embargo. Cuba is in desperate need of a partner. The door is wide open for China. Time is running out for the US to change course.